May 19th, 1990. Then unified lightweight champ Pernell Whitaker beating another fellow future Hall of Famer Azumah Nelson, who was the WBC's 130-pound champ. Huge HBO main event. Great win for Sweet Pea Whitaker. We love being nostalgic about these fighters. Late 80s, early 90s. Here we 34 years ago. Goodness.
I mean, Pernell Whitaker, this is notable because he defeated Azumah Nelson by decision in this fight. It was in his next fight after that that he was able to defeat Juan Nazario by a first round knockout to become the undisputed lightweight champion. He was just one belt shy at that point, back when it was three belts. But Azumah Nelson, he hadn't lost in like 8 years. He had to go all the way. He came into the fight with Pernell having had one loss as a guy who was maybe like 14 or 15 fights into his career, unknown at the time, just an absolutely obscure fighter out of Africa on that night. And he lost to Salvador Sanchez,
Right.
the great Hall of Famer, in what was Sanchez's final fight before he tragically was killed a few weeks later in a car accident. But Azumah Nelson pushed him all the way in that fight in a very, very competitive, outstanding fight before the great Salvador Sanchez stopped Azumah Nelson in the 15th round. But Azumah Nelson came back and made a name for himself, became a champion, and was doing damage at 130 pounds and was one of the best fighters in boxing. He moved up to 135 to take on Pernell Whitaker in this fight. And at the time, I don't think it was as hyped as when you look back and you say, oh my goodness, these were like two great Hall of Famers that fought each other. Back at that moment in time, it wasn't perceived like this is an all-time pairing. But if you go back and you take a look at the career of Pernell Whitaker, and he had a lot of big fights, and he fought a lot of top fighters, I dare say that you could make the argument, it's maybe not the greatest win of his career, but this is in the upper echelon of the victories that Pernell ended up having over the course of that long career. It was not an easy fight. He did win on a decision. It was somewhat competitive. Whitaker was, a pretty good favorite in that fight. It was, when you look back, you realize that this was, two legitimate all-time greats against each other. Pernell would go on and become the number one fighter in boxing pound for pound for many, many years. Azumah Nelson had long reigns as a champion at 130 pounds. You can argue, a lot of people do, he's the greatest African fighter of all time, had some classic battles. And, at the time, it wasn't of that magnitude. But when you look back, you realize, wow, we were lucky to see this kind of fight between these two legit all-time greats doing their business on a fight that wasn't a pay-per-view, that was regular old HBO.
We often say this to the kids, YouTube it up, right? That's what the kids say. YouTube it up and go check
not the
out.
most exciting fight. Not the most exciting fight, but if you're into like the ultimate sweet science, particularly the type of Pernell Whitaker fights that he would put on, this was this is up your alley for sure.